Welcome to the Red Pill Diaries, quarantine edition. I wanted to point out something that's happening in New Zealand, which is it's effectively fascism. There's a new department called the Managed Isolation and Quarantine, well, miq.gov.nz, right? So a friend of mine in Auckland is wanting to go over to Peru. He's just sick of New Zealand. He's been sick of New Zealand since he got there. He's more of an apolitical guy. It's more just certain social aspects he doesn't like in New Zealand. The same kind of social aspects I don't like about the place. So he was living in Brazil before, got back, and he's hated it ever since. But he was telling me how the flight that he bought, before he bought it, they were warning him that it's going to cost him to get back in the country. I wasn't aware of this until yesterday or the day before when we spoke. And so I checked it up myself today, and here are the costs, right? This is a New Zealand citizen, like I am, like he is, to get back into the country. So I've been out of the country for ages, but he's born there. I wasn't. I was born in Scotland, and we've got very similar leadership in Scotland. And it's a leadership I actually support because it's the Scottish National Party who are for independence. They're the main independence party, so of course I support them. But it doesn't stop me seeing, it doesn't stop me reading between the lines and seeing what's happening all around the world with, under the guise of this pandemic, which lockdowns cannot do anything about in the large scheme of things, because you can't lock down the whole world at the same time. There's too many countries out there that just have absolutely no structure, no governance, and they're just basically banana republics, like the US is just becoming right now with their rigged election. And they already had a rigged election in 2000. I'm pretty sure they've had many. I don't know if there's been any since they've had electronic voting machines that are actually legitimate, much like every other country I can think of, with the possible exception of Venezuela. So here are the fees: 3,100. This is charges for managed isolation. That's what they're calling it. And tell me this is not profiteering. $3,100 for the first or only person in the room. There's a quarantine room. I can't imagine this is going to net them heaps of money. People coming into the country for either 10 days or 2 weeks quarantine period in New Zealand. You're currently overseas and return to New Zealand for a period of less than 90 days. Yeah, it's just insane. Anyway, so $3,100. So probably more than your average person makes in a month, but maybe not. They've got a high minimum wage in New Zealand. I think it's it might be over $20 now. It was $14 years ago, so they were one of the first countries to sort of impose these what seemingly good minimum wage laws, but there's no point imposing minimum wage if you can't impose anti-profiteering, and it's something that the watchdog in New Zealand called the Consumer Affairs Bureau or something like that, the Consumer Affairs Department. They do nothing about, because they've got a duopoly there. For example, all media is owned by the Australian provincial newspapers, which is APN, and also, well, not all media, but almost all. I think approaching 90% of media. APN and Fairfax Media own practically everything. That's bus shelters, billboards, magazines, TV stations, the whole lot, except for the TVNZ, of course, the state propaganda broadcaster, which basically just pass on propaganda from other state broadcasters like BBC, Al Jazeera, not RT. I've never seen them pass on any news from that. RT often, they've got a lot of propaganda on there, but they often slip in the truth here and there. So yeah, beyond that, $3,100 with $950 for each additional adult and $475. So that's the thing that's weird. The first child costs $3,000. The first child or adult is $3,100. So you look into the charges to see how disgusting and rigged it is. The first child is $3,100, but thereafter an adult is only $950, and each additional child is $475. So why is that so different? I mean, I understand children will probably eat less, but if that's the case, then why shouldn't the first child be something like 2,100 instead of 3,100? You can tell it's profiteering. That's what's going on here. Sharing that room, all GST inclusive. There will be no charge for children under the age of 3 if they're staying in a room with another person. Well, you're not going to have a child under 3 staying in there. You can't have a child under 14 under New Zealand law that can stay in a room by themselves unaccompanied by an adult. So I'm pretty sure you can have one that's 3. It's insane, this. So what I'm seeing here, let me decode the matrix in this one. What this basically is telling sovereign individuals, well, obviously non-sovereign individuals in sovereign countries, because New Zealand is the test bed. I keep saying New Zealand is a test bed for social engineering, and it's proven it the whole way through. And by the way, don't argue with me if you haven't seen the video, but if you've seen the video of the mosque shooting in New Zealand, the actual full video, you will understand why the New Zealand government imposed I think it was a $280,000 fine or $250,000 fine for anyone possessing that material on their computer or anyone sharing it online. I have seen the full video, and my view completely changed once I saw it, because the guy hasn't got real... For someone who owns a lot of guns, that guy was not shooting real guns, right? Any one of you out there, if you do happen to be someone who is shot even just for fun, in one of these places you roll up in Las Vegas or something and you're on holiday and you want to shoot a machine gun or whatever it is, or shoot a shotgun, or you're on a farm and you've got a shotgun, you have a look at the video. It's very hard to find. It's been almost scrubbed from the internet. Even sites that are supposed to be free speech sites like what's it called again? BitChute. BitChute I don't trust. They came on the other day and they said that their infrastructure got basically shut down in the UK on a third party company. That's to make you build trust in them. They're a centralized company and they do already block stuff before they had it. There's a guy called King of the UK, right? He's one of these people who take a claim on the English throne or English monarchy, because there's actually the family that they're in there shouldn't be there. There's a documentary by Tony Robinson that goes fully in depth to this, and it's got complete proof that the guy is his name is something Loudon, who's actually the rightful king of England. He died. Now it should be his son, for example. So we know that it's all from their own documentation that they've sleuthed through and proven it, right? So we already know that they have a legitimate royal family in Scotland and England. We already know that the New Zealand system is still controlled by the Crown, even though it's not. Just to express the kind of control that's going on here. I'm a British citizen born in Scotland, right? On my passport it says that. Well, let me bring it up. I'll read it out exactly. 1 second. Just going to pause. Okay, here we go. Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of Her Majesty all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. Now, we're the country who, before the Moriori got to New Zealand 900 years ago, and then the Maori followed them 600 years ago, we're the country that built Scotland and England and Wales. Our taxes built what you now know as the modern New Zealand you see today. Well, the foundations of the modern New Zealand that you see today. There's lots of wrong with that. There's lots of things right with that. So, and we have the same issue in South Africa. We built all over Africa. We built train lines. We built infrastructure all over America. We apparently have a special relationship with, yet we have to get an ESTA visa, where some people from parts of the third world can just walk straight in. So obviously not a very special relationship, as I've mentioned in the video 2 days ago. But this is a case where this is a Commonwealth country, and I'm obviously going to be hindered. Well, I also hold a New Zealand passport, and I've got a New Zealand citizenship since the mid-90s or something like that. So, clearly what they're doing is it's a soft version of fascism. Oh, we're not going to stop you coming in, but you've got to pay. Well, I haven't got the money to pay. Well, you can't come in then. So what they're basically doing is putting a barrier for entry into a country that you're naturalised in. And that will be rolled out in other places. So what this is basically doing is cattle stay in your place. Now, I know I said in a video a few days ago that I'm still, there's aspects of lockdown that I like, because the fact is that I stay in my house. I don't really, I go out, go for a walk with the dog and the girlfriend, and come back home and maybe go by nearby cities like Maribor, visit friends. But other than that, I'm pretty much a homebody. I work from home. When I do any kind of work for contract, I do it from home. I do cryptocurrency stuff from home, so I don't need to go out. I don't need to be, and I kind of like, I have recognised that as being a good way for the world to move forward, as long as it's not forced to do so, or it's just shown the way. But this is when you get lied to. Sorry, what I was going to finish off by saying there is that I kind of like lockdown, but the fact it's making the world have less pollution, because regardless of the global warming argument, I've travelled the world. I've been to around about 150 countries, and I can see that pollution is everywhere, and it's a major problem. So you don't have to agree with climate science, the climate scientists, those for or against it, to see that there's rivers filled with crap. When I was in Egypt, I remember there was a canal in Giza, and the whole thing was just filled with plastic bottles. I mean, to the height of this room, it was approximately the height of this room actually, the whole thing filled with plastic bottles. The whole length of it filled with plastic bottles going into the river. Well, actually, before the river, it kind of, it's weird, it kind of got smaller, but then there's this clear water coming out of it. I couldn't believe the water was so clear that it was coming out of it. It must be some spring. All the shit's been washed off the bottles over the years. But anyway, this is likely going to be happening more and more countries. We're already seeing the totalitarian things they're doing in Australia. Australia is very similar to England, because they are effectively, predominantly the white people that you have in Australia are made up of mostly of the southeastern English people. So you've got the DNA from the southeast, and they given the chance, look at the things they've done around the world. The English Empire, they are fascists. You can paint it any way you like. The fact that they still control Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales, the politicians of England, the ruling class of England still keep an iron fist over other countries. They tried to do it to Ireland for many years. They did it to 63 other countries that were part of the British Empire that used to be controlled by the UK, including the America that went to war to escape it. All Scotland had to do was vote away from it. But anyway, and New Zealand got basically let off the hook in 1901, or arguably 1860, but basically New Zealand and Australia around about the same time got given their freedom, and have the arrogance to some Kiwis and Aussies and South Africans to even dispute the fact that Scotland should be an independent country, when our taxes and our intelligence and our frontiermen built the country that you now know today. It's disgusting. All three of those countries, South Africa, because remember the Anglo-Boer War, the British actually took kind of control of the Portuguese and the Dutch back then. So, I've heard from people from all these countries arguing to my face about this shit. Even an Australian girl I used to live with in the UK. So, and meanwhile, look at her country now. She was from Melbourne actually, and look at what's happening in Victoria. So they're implementing global totalitarianism, and it doesn't look to me to be much different than what you have in China. So the China model is being rolled out all over the world. As much as I don't like a lot of the things Trump's done, let me list them for you, just in case you call me a Trump-tard or whatever. So there's a whole bunch, but the most notable for me was Snowden, Chelsea Manning, and Julian Assange. He maintains the persecution of those people who all they're doing is pointing out fake news, which Trump apparently hates. And he didn't coin that expression. That was made up by Hillary Clinton. He took it off her, and then the insane left are mocking him for using something that she came up with, even though they still worship her. There was the Paris Agreement that he left. The world doesn't need that sort of thing to happen. It doesn't need them to ramp up the production of fracked oil and gas in a country that already has so much pollution. Okay, you don't notice it so much. It's a massive country. I've been all around it. I know. And I've lived in a few places too in America, so I do know firsthand. I'm not parroting what I've seen in the media, like a lot of my brethren from Scotland are doing. Again, worrying me that everywhere I'm looking, I'm seeing this dichotomy. You get some countries on the kind of on the right, some on the left. Most of them are believing this
the fake left. It's not even the real left. These lefties that are these globalists, they're to the right of centre. The things they're implementing, and obviously right wingers. A lot of my friends who are right wingers would be offended at that, but it is what it is. When you implement policies that take care of corporations that are producing vaccines or whatever else they're producing that doesn't need to be produced, for example, you're putting conditions in place that billionaires are going to become trillionaires while everyone else is going to get shafted, including millionaires. You are not a friend to the people. You're not a leftist. You're not a socialist. If you even Donald Trump, who's to the left of Nancy Pelosi, who wants to give people checks and she won't allow it. But, giving them $1,200, what's that going to pay for? The only reason Donald Trump agreed to do that was because he wants to not fall into the trap that Obama fell into, which was showing his hand as a corporate apologist and corporate puppet. When Obama bailed out the banksters, the people who caused the financial crisis that affected the whole world, but didn't bail out the people. So Trump wants to bail out the people, but only a token amount. He wants to do what's called the Cantillon effect. The people get money when it can't buy them shit but the basics. That's the universal basic income that is effectively communism-light. That's preparing you for communism. And I don't have a problem with a universal basic income if that is not tied to any government conditions. If it's, let's say, for example, there's a cryptocurrency with a smart contract and that is the global money and you automatically get paid out regardless of what your political affiliations are. Well, that's not really communism, right? But it is if you get told, like in China with your social credit score, or you're going to get docked so many $100, you're not allowed to find a job. You can't even, if you get told that you can't find work, you must take this as your only source of income, and that source of income is affected by how you think. That is communist totalitarianism, right? So let's call it for what it is. And let's also see that the enemy of my enemy isn't necessarily my friend. And actually almost every time isn't my friend. So what's happening right now in New Zealand is nothing short of disgusting. It's nothing short of a form of communism under a guise. For the country to print money, some of my friends at the very start of the pandemic get $7,000. You had to go onto a website and just apply for it. Yeah, I've got a company here. I'm being affected by it. Blah blah blah. Automatic $7,000. Only took a few days to get into their account as well. And I think they repeated that again recently. They've had a little more lockdown countries money than others. So that's effectively becoming more socialism than they already were. New Zealand has quite a high rate of the dole income compared to countries like the UK, where you cannot live on it. You would have to supplement your income by crime in the UK or something like that. And effectively, working on the side, that's still crime. So yeah, you have to supplement your income in the UK with crime, or else you cannot exist on the benefits. And if you don't pool your resources with family members, old people can't afford to live on their pensions either. It's just not enough money. So everywhere, same thing. And everyone, the lefties especially, are just accepting it all. And many of the conservative rights, not your kind of Trump right, your kind of alt-right, but your conservative right, they're accepting it as well. You look at the situation that's happening in America, and it's quite clear that John Bolton and Chris Christie and I'm pretty sure Mike Pompeo will do it soon too, all stabbing Trump in the back. And that's because they are part of the system. You couldn't get away with the voter fraud that happened in America without both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party being complicit. It wouldn't happen, right? So you know what's happening with Trump, and that's if Trump is not just completely acting and just, because he is an actor. He was already in his little TV shows. He probably is an actor. Look, I think I've said enough now to make you understand that I'm not someone who supports Trump, right? But I would say that he is the lesser of a number of evils that you could have in place, especially the least popular candidate, Kamala Harris, who is being attempted to be being installed as a puppet leader of America, because Biden definitely can't take charge, not just because of his declining mental state that's fucking blindly obvious to anyone with a set of eyes and impartial brain, but also the fact that he has a rape charge that is, unlike the ones that Trump has, easy to prove. Trump's ones are going to be quite difficult. I mean, they're likely real, I mean, if he's got 26 people against him, it's likely one of those are real, right? Especially with the kind of comments he made. Now, making a comment about grabbing the pussy doesn't mean that that's what he does. A lot of guys have big talk, he did say locker room talk, even though he's a guy who's probably never kicked a football in his life. But it is true, guys do talk like this, and anyone who says they don't, you've never actually been a proper man. You've been what's called a mangina. You've never been in a football team. You've never played sports competitively, and yeah, and anyone who disagrees with me who has done this, I know you're a liar because I've been there myself. I used to play all sorts of sports. I used to play rugby. I used to play football, and in multiple countries as well. So either you've gone to some weird out the way places that were extremely liberal, as far as politically correct liberal, not the liberal that I am, which is just live and let live, and don't be a fascist, effectively. Yeah, or else you have some other agenda, and you're just basically lying for that agenda because you want to align yourself. That's just the crux of it, right? So I'm just letting it be known that I see what's happening in New Zealand. I've got no plan. Of course, I've got to go back and see my mum. I like to go out and hang out with my friends in Auckland and Wellington. Although, to be honest, now when I go back to New Zealand, I'd rather just go back to Auckland and Napier. And if people want to see me, they can come and see me. You know, I'm tired of traveling all over the place. I've already been all around New Zealand, so I don't need to see more things. Although in the South Island, there's a few places I need to go and people I need to visit. But other than that, you know, I don't want to visit too often. I haven't been back since start of 2017. And it looks like I'm probably not going to go back for a few years because, well, one, I have my dog to think about, but it's not so easy to travel with him now. But also this situation of lockdown, even if my dog passes on at some stage in the next few years, you know, will I really want to go back in that situation, put myself through a quarantine that's going to carry on and on, just because they can't admit that it was wrong in the first place to quarantine people, well, or that it was intentional. Look, if it's for the environment, just fucking tell us. Because half the world will be on board if it is. You know what I mean? Half the world aren't idiots that can say, we're not doing anything on this planet. You know, of course, there is exaggerations to the whole climate affair as well. You know, I won't deny that. I won't deny that there is scientists who have lied to, you know, whether for payment, in the same way that the scientists on the other side to say that it's not happening have lied. When we know something is happening because data shows us it's happening. Core samples, the situation in the Arctic tundra in Siberia, you know, it's inescapable evidence that what we have going on, the accelerated rate of man-made extinctions. Extinctions have always happened, yes, but man-made extinctions are something that we can correlate to ourselves. A lot of birds in New Zealand, the huia, for example, that people used to put the thing around their neck. The male feeds the females, it has an extra long beak. The female can't survive on her own. King George had a feather in his hair, so it got hunted to extinction. The moa hunted to extinction. The Haast eagle, because the moa got hunted to extinction, as well as the Maoris stealing the eggs. You know, we can't deny the things that we've done, the human race, and we can't deny what we're pulling out of the earth and burning and pumping into the atmosphere. And not just that, the effects of the few degrees changes, which are affecting areas, Lake Baikal, the biggest freshwater lake in the world. We can see the effects of what we're doing. It's too coincidental to turn away from these things. It's just like the political situation where people on the left and right who are, you know, on one side or the other, they're completely sucked in and they feel they have to have tribalism. Instead of applying a balanced logic and say, right, I'm whatever I am, doesn't matter if I'm a lefty, but I can still apply balanced logic, or I'm a right winger or whatever. You can still apply balanced logic to things and still say, look, just because I'm a right winger and that guy's a right winger, if that guy's a paedophile, I'm still going to point out that he's a paedophile. I'm not going to apologize for him just because he's on the same side as me, you know? And this is what we are seeing. We're seeing people, I mean, the video evidence of Biden over the years sniffing children and grabbing them, groping them, right? Live on camera, whispering into their ears weird, creepy things, because you can hear them, a lot of them. You are willfully ignorant if you ignore that sort of stuff. I don't want to be living in a world where the totalitarian control we have is by people like that. It's bad enough being in a world with totalitarian control, but with people like that at the helm, give me a fucking break. We can't sit by and let this happen. So, and I know I've said in the past I'm a slightly left libertarian, in some ways anarcho-capitalist. I understand that anarchy cannot be implemented. It would be impossible, because you would get taken out by countries that haven't got anarchy. They'd see you as a weakness and they'd send in their military. It could be a country like America could get taken over by a country with a small population like Canada or Honduras. Simple as that. So you can't do it unless the whole world would rid themselves of government at the same time, and that's highly fucking unlikely, right? So the only hope for us really is, like I was saying in the Elon Musk video the other day, would be to effectively get away from the rest of humanity. Find like-minded folk and go to places. Right. For example, the world could do this anyway. We could, for example, if we just agreed that people living on the island of the UK, for example, if that island was people who just thought with a totalitarian mindset, right? That's why it's an island. It's easy to lock up. Whatever. Okay, fine. I'll leave it behind. Or let's say the 800 islands we've got in Scotland. If we actually had separate islands of those, and the population of Scotland could choose to, right? If you live in the island of Giga, or you're going to live in a totalitarian socialist environment, right? Everyone's together in socialism. If you live in Arran, it's going to be anarcho-capitalist. If you live in Lewis, it's going to be properly like it was in Scotland originally. This is why, by the way, when I say this is what would happen and why you can't have anarchy, my country's proof. My country had tribalism, and that is the only reason that England was able to dominate and control Scotland over the years, was because we were living in effectively something between anarchy and localism. That's what we had in Scotland, where clans controlled areas. But other than that, you could live as a free man. You're a sovereign individual. And what happened there? Well, because we weren't united under one collective force, the collective force of the leftover remnants of the Roman Empire, which was England, they took over our country and have done ever since, well, not ever since, but since 1707. And we haven't been able to we haven't done anything about it since then. We've been too weak and spineless to do anything about it as a collection, as a country, as a collective. Now we are a country, we still can't even form a spine. We're better going back to our clan roots, as far as I'm concerned, in Scotland. So, and because you do have governance structures that would probably support you. We want to go back to a simple way of life, blah, 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 not without technology, but a more simple way of political life. We should be supported by mandates of the United Nations and NATO, for example. So there is avenues of possibility for becoming libertarian or anarchistic society, but yeah. So I'm going to leave it there. I just wanted to point out what is happening. America is under a coup right now, an attempted coup by Kamala Harris, the second most unpopular person during the debates, who got her ass handed to her on a plate by Tulsi Gabbard, who in turn was blocked. Her and Yang and Sanders were all blocked from becoming nominees, even though they were far more popular together than Biden and Harris were. This is a coup. Biden will never serve because he's senile, and if he does, it will just be as a death rattle, a husk, a puppet, until such time as they can crown Kamala the Empress. All right, I'll leave it there. The whole world is rigged. Politics is rigged everywhere. Just remember that. It's no different in your country, wherever you are. Thanks, bye.